Hi guys, so I just heard about Matt Gaetz's report, the report about Matt Gaetz that has been released. I was just watching Don Lemon, and he's the former CNN news anchor, I guess, and he basically called Matt a creep. And so I thought, oh, that's harsh. But then once we heard, what was in the report, it's hard not to agree with Don if indeed these allegations are true. So the recent release of the report on Mr. Gaetz by a Republican led committee indeed paints a shocking picture of alleged misconduct ranging from rampant drug use, all kinds of different drugs, to violations of state laws allegedly, and payments to numerous women, including a 17-year-old girl allegedly. The contents of this report are undeniably disturbing, even as Mr. Gaetz remains entitled to the presumption of innocence until proven guilty in a court of law. Nevertheless, the revelations in this report, as Don Lemon pointed out on his YouTube channel, have triggered serious questions about the integrity of those in power, political power in particular, and the processes by which such individuals are vetted and held accountable. So, as Don points out, I mean, the findings in this report are much worse than we even imagined. And he couldn't mince his words. He literally called Gaetz a creep, right? And I mean, assuming these allegations are true. And so some of the specific allegations include the allegation that Mr. Gaetz spent over 90,000 US dollars on women and buying and using drugs and referring to these drugs allegedly as party favors and vitamins, and engaging in, again, relations with an underage girl. And so these allegations are not just salacious, mind you, but would point to potential criminal conduct if indeed these allegations about the minor are true. That these details emerge from a committee led by Gates's own party adds credibility to the findings, as political bias cannot be invoked as a defense because it wasn't the Democrats who, you know, you know, did the investigation or release the report, right? What is particularly striking is that Matt Gaetz, I'm sorry, Mike, Matt Gaetz, Mr. Gaetz, amidst this cloud of allegations, was just very recently considered by President-elect Trump for the position of Attorney General to the United States. I mean, that's when I first, really knew of him. I'd heard his name in passing, but until it was revealed that he was the top choice for President Trump for Attorney General, I really didn't know much about him. And apparently, he was also backed by Elon Musk. This was one of Elon Musk's picks for the top job the top lawyer job in the country. Um, and he was one of a few that Mr. Trump um, ultimately either didn't pick or unpicked, as the case may be. So they were backed by Elon. And I've forgotten who else Elon backed. There was somebody for Treasury Secretary or something like that that was backed by Elon, but Mr. Trump went with someone else. But in the case of Matt Gaetz, Trump did in fact nominate Mr. Gaetz, but he had to pull that nomination. The fact that such a nomination was even on the table, though, raises some very serious questions about the vetting process under Trump's administration, right? And the priorities of those in leadership positions and who is basically advising Trump and what is their motive. What would be the motive for somebody advising Mr. Trump to pick someone like Matt Gaetz for the job of Attorney General of the United States, knowing the contents of this report? It just it boggles the mind, right? Mr. Gates's alleged behavior is not just morally questionable, but could undermine the public trust in the institution he was supposed to represent at the Department of Justice. I mean, it just doesn't get any higher than that, other than being a judge on the Supreme Court, I would think that would require you to have some kind of moral integrity, right? And the idea that this man was recommended by Musk and others, and that Mr. Trump actually picked him for the role before his own party members basically balked. This is the second time because, there was this situation with Mr. Gaetz, and then there was this time when they wanted the Congress to just blow up the deficit or blow up the debt ceiling, I should say. And twice the Republicans have stood up to Trump, and he's not even in office as yet. So I don't know what this all means, but it sort of looks very interesting to me as far as what's actually going to happen once Trump gets into office. I don't think it's going to be as bad as people think it's going to be because the Congress is not going to go along with it. They're standing up to Trump toe to toe, right? Now, despite the gravity of the allegations, I should point out that Mr. Gaetz has not been criminally charged, right? Now, legal experts point out that this could be due to the difficulty of securing evidence that meets the high standard required for prosecution. Because, for example, the age of some allegations, the reluctance of witnesses to come forward, or the possibility of plea deals for key individuals may also factor into the equation and make it just less likely that he'll be charged. Nonetheless, the absence of charges, excuse me, I had to stop for a second, but the absence of charges does not exonerate Gaetz in the court of public opinion, where we know that it can be a mob justice in some situations, as we discussed in one of the articles we just did in the community section, right? So in that arena, the damage to his reputation seems irreparable. I don't see how he comes back from this in terms of having a political career, but I'm not going to hold my breath. It's I mean, I don't know. It's hard to envision a clear path for Mr. Gaetz to sustain a career in politics, but nothing is normal anymore. There are no norms. While there have been instances of politicians weathering scandals in the past and returning to the public stage, the nature of these allegations, particularly those involving a minor, sets this case apart, I would say. I don't know. What do you think? Do you see a path back for him? Uh Look, the American electorate, as we can see with the election of President Trump for a second term, is often quite forgiving. But even so, while often forgiven, I think even in America, there's a line when it comes to actions that breach basic ethical and legal norms, like are alleged in this case that Mr. Gaetz has done. His association with such behavior, whether proven in court or not, I think creates a stigma that may be insurmountable. But again, I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Okay. Um, because, oops, because, we're in an era where partisan loyalties often overshadow moral considerations. I mean, you're talking about Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Marjorie Taylor Greene era of politics, right? And so it's possible that Mr. Gaetz could attempt to rehabilitate his image by doubling down on his political base. He has been a staunch ally of Mr. Trump, okay, and Mr. Musk. And it's true that he's also a polarizing figure within the GOP. And this role has garnered him both supporters and critics, apparently, you see. So whether his support will be enough, however, to sustain his political ambitions, it remains to be seen. Again, I'm not going to hold my breath either way. I do think that any such effort would likely come with significant resistance from within his own party and the broader electorate. But, time will tell, right? We live in some very interesting times. So what's the takeaway? The takeaway is that the report on Mr. Gaetz is a damning document, as Don Lemon points out on his YouTube channel. And this report raises some serious questions about Mr. Gaetz's conduct and suitability for public office, right? And while the principle of innocent until proven guilty remains paramount in our system of government in the United States, I do think the court of public opinion is less forgiving, and the allegations against this individual themselves may be enough to end his political career. I mean, it could be definitive. Um, but we'll have to see. I mean, as the fallout from the report continues to ricochet for the next few days, it will serve as a litmus test, I think, for accountability and the integrity of the American political system. If I could even, at this point, even put it in such terms. Anyway, that's all for this one. See you in the next one. Take care. Bye.